We'll open the meeting in our regular way with a karakia. Manawa mai te mori nuku, manawa mai te mori rangi, he manawa nui, he manawa tahi, he manawa ora e, ka whakamaua kia tina, hui e tae ki e. Awesome. Okay. Before we begin the formal matters of our meeting, I would just like to acknowledge the passing of our colleague from Wellington City, Tony Randall. As you know, Tony was a lover of public transport and buses in particular, and everyone has mentioned his attention to detail, and he certainly applied that to the public transport network and our ways of thinking. So it's a massive loss for obviously his family, but for Wellington and for public transport in general. So I don't know whether we will do a more formal acknowledgement of Tony at a council meeting, but I did just want to start the meeting by spending a moment thinking about him. The next matter on the agenda is a bit happier. To introduce you all to Chris Parkin, who is sitting to my left here. So Chris is our PTAG representative, and I'll just hand over to Chris, and he might just introduce himself in a couple of sentences.
Kia ora. Thank you for having me. I am Chris Parkin. I've just recently taken over as chair of PTAG. This is my second time on the committee, on the PTAG committee. I was drawn to PTAG because I have my career has been based around public transport. So I spent 5 years working for Transdev, but prior to that, I spent 15 years working for London Underground and as the resourcing manager there. So when I left Transdev, I wanted to continue to have my finger in the public transport game, and so hence why I joined PTAG. And I hope that I can provide value to the committee with my operational experience and my experience with not only just Wellington Transport, but worldwide transport. So. Kia ora.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And we're very lucky to have you. And we're pretty relaxed how we run the meetings. So if you have any queries, just stick your hand up and we'll make sure your issues are addressed. Excellent. Okay, the next item on the agenda is apologies, and we have a few apologies for lateness. I have Councillor Macarini has made it, but Councillor Tupou is still late, so I'm sure he is not far away. And Councillor Rhodes has also given me his apologies for lateness. Is anyone aware of any other? I have not received anything from Councillor Johnson. You're here. Excellent. So I've had apologies from Councillor Rhodes and Councillor Tupou for lateness. Claire is online. Oh, Penny's online. Sorry, I haven't heard anything from Councillor Johnson. Maybe we should just check in to check she's all right. Would someone like to put those apologies? Councillor Free and seconded by Councillor Elder. All those in favour? Carried. Okay. Conflicts of interest. Does anyone have any conflicts they would like to disclose in relation to the items on the meeting? There being none, we will move on to public participation. We've got an exciting lineup this morning. So led by Tamara, do you want to come forward and all your team? I've got Lisa, Bob and Kim, but it looks like it might be a little bit of a different lineup this morning. Yep, so the seats there.
Thank you.
So Tamara's going to be talking about reinstating the Days Bay Seatoon ferry service. Technically, you've got 5 minutes to speak and then 5 minutes for us to ask you questions, but there's a couple of you, so if you want to extend that a little bit longer, I will be very lenient.
Okay, thank you. And that's the clicker. So just okay. Morena, everybody. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak today. My name is Tamara Tubbs, and I'm speaking on behalf of our community group, which includes Bob Roach, Jim Pinson, and Lisa South, who sadly couldn't attend. Over the past few months, we've been working with Eastbourne and Miramar Peninsula residents, the Eastbourne Community Board, local business owners, and schools to explore reinstating the Days Bay, Seatoon, Queen's Wharf ferry service. For many years, there was a morning and evening commuter ferry connecting Days Bay, Seatoon, and Queen's Wharf. It was part of Wellington's public transport network. People relied on it to get to work, school, and around the city. It connected communities across the harbour. 3 years ago, that connection was lost. Today, we're not asking Greater Wellington Council to create something new. We're asking you to consider reconnecting this important public transport service and strengthening Wellington's transport network. We believe it would benefit communities on both sides of the harbour by improving access to work, education, the airport, and recreation. We wanted to understand whether there was genuine community demand. The response exceeded our expectations. More than 550 people completed the survey in just 2 weeks. Nearly 80% said they or someone in their household would use the Seatoon service to Queen's Wharf. The message from the community was clear. People want another public transport option across Wellington Harbour. The survey showed this isn't just about commuting. People told us they see the ferry as a way of connecting communities. Families highlighted education as an important reason for supporting the service. Scots College, Wellesley College, and Muritai School have all shown strong support for improving these connections. The ferry would also improve access to the airport, make it easier for people to visit neighbouring communities, enjoy beaches, cafes, and restaurants, and support local businesses on both sides of the harbour. Better transport creates better connected communities. So to reiterate, transport isn't just about getting people from A to B, it's about supporting communities and our local economy. Every day people spend valuable time sitting in traffic, particularly through the airport corridor and the Mount Victoria Tunnel. A ferry gives people another transport choice. Instead of sitting in traffic, people can use that time to work, study, read, or simply arrive at their destination less stressed. It also encourages people to spend time in neighbouring communities, supporting cafes, restaurants, shops, and local businesses. This benefits everyone. One thing we've all experienced over recent years is how vulnerable our transport network becomes to roadworks. During construction of the Eastbourne Shared Path, and with future water infrastructure upgrades planned, we've all experienced that pain. These projects are important and necessary, but they remind us why options matter. A resilient transport network isn't one that never experiences disruption, it's one that has alternative ways of moving people when disruption occurs. Wellington already has another transport corridor, our harbour. One of the questions we've been asking is how to make this happen in a practical sense. We've spent time with Matt from East by West Ferries to better understand the operational requirements. They've advised us that the current fendering at Seatoon Wharf is the key issue preventing safe berthing. They've also advised that if the fendering was brought into line with the larger style at Days Bay Wharf, 2 of their ferries could safely berth at Seatoon. From our perspective, that's very encouraging. It suggests this isn't an impossible problem, it's a practical implementation issue that deserves further investigation. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. We hope we've shown that there is strong community support for reinstating this service and that it aligns with the goals of a connected and productive city and region. Wellington Harbour is one of our city's greatest transport assets, and we'd love to see it playing an even bigger role in connecting our communities. Thanks for your time. We're happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. That was a great presentation, guys. Thank you. Who has questions? Bit of a speaking order here. Councillor Free first and then Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. It's really interesting that there's a group. What community group, what do you call your community group that's currently trying to work on this issue?
The Eastbourne Miramar Peninsula group. We're
Okay.
2 groups. Eastbourne and Miramar Peninsula.
Cool, thank you. And I also understood there was something to do with the height of the Seatoon Wharf that might be a barrier, but was that mentioned by the East by West Ferries people?
2 of the ferries can safely berth,
Two.
but the
Okay.
big electric ferry, that's correct, it wouldn't work for the Seatoon.
But the
Wharf
only
currently.
barrier for the 2 ferries is the size of the buffer tyres.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
My understanding is that they are currently too low, too hard, and would damage the ferry if they berthed, if there was, I don't know, some swell.
I think Matt, who's here, made the point
Yes.
that every 2 or 3 months you'd have to pull one of those boats in and repair them after a heavy berth because the fendering was never quite right. It seems a bit counterintuitive. Yeah.
Thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So next I've got Councillor Duffy and then Councillor Ponta.
Thank you. Kia ora. Lovely to see you again.
Kia ora, Quentin.
Different passenger user groups have different sort of timing needs. So, for example, school kids have particular times when they would use the service to get between the schools and homes in those Miramar Peninsula and Eastbourne. Recreational users maybe would want to use it more on a weekend. Other people use it at different times. What do you think, given that any service would have to have a limited timetable, what do you think the sort of timetable would meet the user expectations or needs?
Yeah, I think until it stopped, the main sort of pedestrian type that we saw coming off at we're from Seatoon, Jim and I, would be the Scots kids. And there was perhaps a little bit of a feeling in the community that the arrival of the ferry into Seatoon with the Scots kids didn't really match commuter time because it arrived in Seatoon about 8:30. I don't think that's a problem anymore. I think there'd be flexibility with commuters and Seatoon people getting into town at 9:15 or whenever. And I think with the post-COVID and the flexibility of working, people feel less constrained about when they actually have to get into town, but to get into town they do have to. So I just think there's flexibility around that now. The recreational use, again, couple at the weekend would be great.
Yeah, and previously there was a morning service and an evening service from Queen's Wharf to Seatoon, so it was one service either way during the week, and I think a service during the weekend.
The evening service back to Seaton was fine. It was 10 to 6-ish, and that worked for a lot of people. In the morning, I think no later, but as Bob says, flexibility is a thing, and if it left Seatoon at 15:15, 20:00, 5:30, all of those times would probably be okay.
So just to clarify, the previous service was just one in the morning from
One in the evening.
Days Bay to Seatoon, and then it would carry on to Queen's Wharf.
Yes. And then
then
vice
one
versa.
in the evening going reverse on weekdays.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Councillor Ponta?
Thank you. Great presentation. So one of the difficulties with this sort of survey that you've done is that when you ask people if they want something, everybody says yes. And I suppose from bitter experience, we have lived a situation where we walk into that situation where a lot of people say yes, and then the reality is, it's not that they didn't mean yes, but their yes is a little bit more occasional than they had thought that it might be. Are you going to do any further work to actually bottom out who the potential users would be for this service, or is that something that you're sort of now leaving on our doorstep?
Happy to do more work.
Yeah, I think. Sorry.
There you go, Bob.
I mean, we do a lot of sort of anecdotal research in the Little Sprig, and there and thereabouts in Seatoon, and there's without being able to give you any figures and data, there's definitely a growing groundswell of people who would say, what's happened, and we would certainly, like to start using it again.
Yeah.
And because of working flexibility reasons and a different demographic in Seatoon. Seatoon's really expanded lately, and there's the next generation of people who want to get into work and get their kids to school. So we could that's just anecdotal.
Yeah.
Darren, but we could I suppose do some more scientific survey.
No, thanks for that, Bob. I think that would be an issue for us to explore together. I suppose my other question, just based on the previous question, is from a user perspective, this sounds like it is more. It's not a criticism, but more Seatoon centric. More Eastbourne centric.
Yeah.
So reinstating this, it's largely reinstating the type of service that was in there previously. How do we get more balance across the harbour, so that the people from Miramar, who you're also representing, are able to get a service in the morning, perhaps to Wellesley or wherever? Is that in your frame at all?
To be honest, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it's more Seatoon to city that.
Okay.
That we're,
So it is a morning in and an evening back.
That's right.
Okay,
Yeah.
just want to understand that.
It's to bypass the traffic.
Okay.
And have a pleasant trip into
Yes.
work and back.
Cool. Thank you.
So Councillor Duffy wants a second question, but Councillor Saw might have her first question first, if that's okay.
Sorry, mate.
Thank you so much for coming in, and I was very interested to see when this survey would turn up when I saw it on your Facebook page. So I was like, I knew you guys would be coming in. It's a great conversation to have, and I think there is a lot of potential in the long term for our ferry. I just wanted to understand whether anecdotally you'd had conversations on the existing offerings of public transport, and whether that mix was insufficient or sufficient, or what was it that of the existing offerings that didn't quite work? Just taking out the connection to, the Miramar Seatoon aspect, but from the Eastbourne perspective, and I guess separately, I guess in the constrained environments we work in public transport, unfortunately we're in a space where it's like we can't add on anymore, and to add something on you'd have to take something away.
Yeah.
So just wanting to contextualize that a little bit, because there's some quite good bus services. I get they get stuck in traffic, but just wanted to get some flavour of the feedback you might have got at the Little Spring and whatnot.
Yeah, I speaking to the Eastbourne community who catch the ferry or catch the bus in, I believe that there was a bus which everyone loved that would pick up everyone to Point Howard, and then it would just go straight into town. That bus was cancelled, and that service was cancelled, and so it's a very long way to catch the bus if you are trying to get into town. We've had 2 years of roadworks around Eastbourne, which is great to see the walkway, definitely, but yeah, it was pretty horrendous. And yeah, it's a very slow service. It goes via Lower Hutt to Queensgate. Like, it's, how are you going to get in?
What's the appetite for, I know your survey didn't do this, but about multimodal, so you have people might get on the ferry and then change to another mode, but what about jumping on to the train?
Jumping onto the train?
Like from Waterloo or Petone?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not really sure about that.
No, we didn't cover that in the survey. No.
Yeah, it was easier for us to do the survey because we presented to the Eastbourne Community Board, and they're very pro the ferry. Emily Cadell and Quentin was at that meeting too, and so we were able to share it through the community notice board, the survey. So, but people, I'm a local and grew up in Eastbourne, and so the appetite is definitely there, I believe, for people to go to Seatoon for school options, but also for people to come from Seatoon and Miramar into town as well. It's probably a 2-hour round trip to get into Seatoon and back in a car from Eastbourne. I'd say probably better if there was no traffic, but if you're trying to get in there, it's a long time. So it was easier, whereas the Seatoon don't have a community board. So I know that there's interest from people who work in the Miramar jobs like at Weta, or there's a I know they would like a ferry service of people who don't live in town trying to get closer. I guess it's just productivity. It's not productive to be sitting in a car for so long for quite a lot of people, and yeah.
Awesome. We'll just go to our next question, which is Councillor Duthie.
Two fairly simple but interrelated questions. So one is, pro of the ferry is when it runs, it's very punctual, there's no traffic congestion on the harbour. The con of the ferry is that weather sometimes gets in the way. What would the users of a ferry service do when the ferry doesn't run? Because there's always has to be that plan B for ferries. And what did they do before even? And then I guess the other question is, people change their choices and behaviours based on what's available. So do you know if the number of Eastbourne students going to Scots College has reduced since the ferry service was taken away, because they now have a much longer journey and therefore might affect the clientele for a ferry?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. I know that from Will Struthers from Scots. They had many more kids, many more Scots families who attended Scots College from Eastbourne.
But people pull it.
And also it's become
But
co-ed.
they,
It's become co-ed
Yeah,
since, so there's a double.
it has become co-ed. So the attendance to Scots colleges from Eastbourne is pretty low
From C2,
in comparison.
From C2, the plan B for those of us who used to get the ferry would be the bus, or we'd carpool, wouldn't we? We'd have.
And same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in answer to your question, I mean, the bus transport options from C2 are fantastic. It works really well. But I think if the ferry was reinstituted, then you wouldn't be taking customers away from the bus. You'd be attracting a new type of patronage.
You'd be taking people out of cars. I mean, we know anecdotally that many of us just jump in a car and drive 25 minutes into town and are prepared to sit in traffic. That's 25 cars where, and even if we carpool, it's still significant.
Thank you very much. That was a really interesting discussion. If there are no further questions from our team, I'm going to hand over to Sam. This is in respect, so that last slide, which has disappeared, kind of had your asks of us. So I'm just going to ask specifically Sam to address when are the most appropriate times within our planning cycle for us to look at this as an opportunity, and so when it's likely to come up and what processes that would be through.
Thanks through you, Chair. So thanks for your presentation. Just in terms of our Metlink planning of ferry services and things, the next time we would have got that programmed in to look at will be when we're looking at refreshment of the contract, the ferry contract, which will be around about 2029. So that's when we would have that in our work program to specifically look at it. Having said that, we do a customer satisfaction survey on a twice annually, and we've also recently just commissioned a survey on the ferry service in terms of the current service between Days Bay and the city, and that we've just received that, so that will be being reported back to this committee at the next committee meeting on the 10th of September. So that will be another time at which we will have some additional feedback to consider around the ferry service.
I'm just wondering, for the team that's come in and presented to us, and also for people around the table, do you have some background information on the Seatoun Wharf and the issues, and just so you could update us on the issues that would need to be addressed?
We can return to the committee with that. We understand what the issues are.
Yeah, so if we put that on the action item for you to come back with some information for us so we have a better understanding of what would need to be addressed. Councillor Ponta?
2029 will seem like a long time away for people making this.
Yeah, I was trying to think of something a little bit more immediate.
Samantha, I just wonder what the implications are in relation to the LTP, because that is the thing that's on the table now, and while the submitters won't necessarily think of it through this lens, what they're asking for is more money to be spent on the public transport network. So how does this proposition get levered into or considered as part of the LTP, which is in the now, as opposed to in 2029.
The money question seems to have spurred a few more questions. So, Councillor Free and Councillor Duthie, do you want to add your requests in before Sam answers Darren's question?
My question was really about getting some more information. It's easy to assume that because the service isn't there, that, who would use it because it's not there. But I'm thinking, is it possible for staff to get some more information from the likes of the airport, Weta, Scots College, and some of the other big entities, both sides of this possible service, to really make a bit more considered assessment of what the patronage might possibly be?
So I'm thinking, depending on what Councillor Duthie's question is, that that those are kind of two separate things. We need officers to bring us back a bit more information, which would cover off like what the issues are and how we would address them, and what a proper business case might involve if we were going to work that up, so that we have, so that we know what we're getting ourselves into ahead of the LTP. Councillor Duthie.
Oh, sorry.
The other very immediate opportunity to have a think here is for the Hutt bus review, which is just about to kick off consultation on Monday. We are proposing a possibility of adding an extra ferry service as a mitigation for Eastbourne losing some bus services. Now that's a different sort of ferry service than a Seatoon one, but it does, we will no doubt get feedback in that survey about your Seatoon service, especially since I just told you attention. So we will be getting advice on whether it's a good idea to add that extra ferry service that is proposed. So that could be an opportunity to add in some advice based on feedback received as to whether this could be looked at in that context.
So I think from here, if we can note in the action items for officers to bring back a bit more information around around what the situation is and what would a proper business case be required, such that we could make an LTP decision. And obviously now you guys have been let in on the secret that the bus review will be looking at an extra ferry service, so that's an opportunity for people to input into this process through a different channel. Councillor Ponta?
Yeah, if you just indulge me, Madam Chair, less a question, more just a comment, and that is that I don't think the submitters should leave this meeting without an understanding that we're under some very severe fiscal pressure here in relation to the network as a whole. We are actively having to think about pulling services back. I'm not talking about ferries, I'm just talking about PT generally. So that is the environment in which you are depositing this proposal on the table. So it's not an easy conversation that's going to have.
We'd hope if there were resources amongst us and your officers that we could put a business case that shows that it's actually not a cost.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Thank you. So at our next meeting, which I think is September, it will be noted in the action items when that information is going to come back, so you can keep an eye on when we're going to receive that and follow up again. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks very much.
And prompting that very interesting discussion. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is confirmation of the public minutes of the meeting on Thursday the 11th of June. Does anyone have any... No queries or additions to that? In that case, Councillor Saw is going to move those. Someone like to second them? Councillor James is going to second them. All those in favour? Carried. Okay, we'll move on to the update on progress on action items. Sam, do you want to talk us through this?
Sure, thank you. The action items are as outlined in the report, just in terms of the item regarding rail replacement services improvement action plan. I just wanted to note that there is some additional signage which we're trialling, which the Chair and Deputy Chair had a look at last week. So that's some progress on that, but we will do a fulsome update of that action plan before the summer block of line in November, as noted in the report. We'll come back to the next meeting with our update on cycles on trains. the bus shelter prioritisation criteria and the like has been circulated to councillors as requested, and you've also received some information regarding the performance reporting.
Just some comments from me. So it was very useful to get that note or memo on the bus stop prioritisation stuff. So I think everyone found that really useful. Does anyone want any different information re the bus stops? Councillor Saw?
Just to reiterate the chair's comment, that memo was really helpful and I think useful for us to allay some of our constituent inquiries in terms of the categorisation and the criteria that goes in behind the bus shelter prioritisation. Further to my request, I guess my request is, like we have from the environment, from Ropu Taiao, regarding notifications on consents being lodged, is there any way that we're able to see what upcoming work there is in the shelters so that we're able to, just so we can have that calendar of work in case we do get inquiries in a similar way that's automated?
Thanks. Yes, through you, yes, we're looking at how we can provide that information in the most sensible way to do it.
Excellent. Councillor Frew?
My request is similar. I would actually like, if we're able to have it, a list of what's planned. And yeah, because it's really nice to be over the top of these things rather than the back foot when people ask.
Member Parkin, break the cherry. I think it was meant to be a thought. Anyway.
With regards to the rail replacement, this is always a massive issue with regards to PTAG and the PTAG members. The delivery date of November seems a little too late. When, from my experience, summer timetables are being developed now, rosters are being developed now. Surely that time frame for November is too late, and we should be looking at that earlier.
So through you, Chair, thanks for the question. So the November date is the date in which we would propose to put to the committee all of our plans, for how we deal with BRT. So yes, we have the information as to what the closure period is at the moment, but there are quite a lot of threads that we need to draw together. So that's the purpose of the November report. Paul, did you want to make any further comment?
I want to make a wee comment on, and I'm the chair, so I can. So I don't know whether you guys are going to bring back to us the stuff that you've been working on just recently, but the team has done some exceedingly good work over the last couple of months on, it's not even necessarily buses replacing trains, but it's kind of alternative, when I think it's entitled when your public transport isn't going to plan or something like that, so disruption comms. And if you want to visit and see something tangible, the Petone train station has some screens where the idea of these screens is to essentially say, if your bus isn't coming, if your train isn't coming or is delayed, here's some alternative options. So it outlines where the bus stops are and where those bus stops will take you. So it will be like, there's a bus stop outside Kathmandu. It will connect you with the 81, the 110, the blah, blah, blah. So that's really helpful. And it will also give you the options on your train. So it might say buses are being arranged, or this train has been cancelled, wait for the next train will be, etc., etc. So the team has done a lot of work on disruption comms just recently, and the fruits of that are visible in Petone Station. This is a bit of a trial, so I'd really encourage everyone to go visit it and see what you think, and let the team know whether it meets some of our needs in terms of explaining what options to commuters are. And also, we're continuing to do more work around this, but ensuring that really transparent and accurate information are given to commuters about what's gone wrong and what their options are is a really important priority for me. So the team are working on this at the moment. Paul, do you want to add anything to that?
Just that the customer experience team will be bringing those improvements to things that they've been working on to PTAG prior to the November meeting. You'll probably get to see that. They just want more feedback from the PTAG group.
Councillor James?
Oh no, I was just going to note that I'd asked if that stuff would come to PTAG, but Paul beat me to it, so happy days.
Councillor Tupou.
Madam Chair, just also want to acknowledge the notifications in some of our local regs. I think it's really valuable for our senior customers. And I'm just reading the Wainuiomata News there in regards to the union meeting coming up on the 19th of August and letting people know that there will be some bus replacements. So I think it's a good transition. There are some people in our community who aren't connected with the tech, so having the sort of long form is also helpful. Kia ora.
You're lucky to be in a community that still has a community reg. Councillor Free.
So on the 6th of this month, I think there were 2 communications regarding bus shelters, but one only went to a certain group of councillors, and I was wondering if we could actually all have that information. And then I don't know if we could also understand when we see the list of bus shelters, how they relate to, the ones that you're actually planning to do, how they relate to these prioritisations. Because I've seen some go in recently in rather unusual, in my mind, unusual places, and actually then to be whipped out 2 or 3 months after they've been put in, which does seem really weird. So I'm quite keen to get to understand this better.
So in terms of action items on the bus shelters, we're just going to make sure that comms was consistently shared with all councillors. But the bigger thing is to give us kind of an update monthly or something of which bus shelters are going to be upgraded in the near future, so that you can stay on top of that. And obviously it's then going to be beholden on councillors to go through the list and identify any bus shelters that they have questions about, and then follow up on that. But we'll make sure that comes. Councillor Ponta.
So just on the bus shelters, we've clearly got a program of works for Let's Get Wellington to the Golden Mile area. If any of those bus stops aren't upgraded in the way that was originally intended, where does that money go? Does it go into the pot that is for bus shelters generally, and therefore would be available for suburban bus stops in Kapiti or Wellington or wherever, or is it lost to shelters and somehow diverted elsewhere in our system?
So that's probably a question for the LTP in terms of what we deal with that money, and we have some options around that. So it will be a subsequent conversation.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions? Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. Just first to say that I've been very well supported by Metlink with when I had questions about bus shelter priority in Wainuiomata, and provided us a list of what's gone in over the last couple of years and where the next ones are and what priority they are. It's been very useful to see that in a lower hut context. So suggest that, Councillor Free. My question is actually to follow up on Member Parkin's question that particular action around rail replacement services includes providing details of this summer's block of line plans. November to me does seem a bit late, unless if it's just providing us information of something that's locked and loaded and can't be changed, well, maybe that's fine. But if you want any feedback that has any influence, it needs to be September, so you've got some time to actually tweak things. So in terms of that aspect of it, I think I would prefer to see that sooner rather than later. Otherwise, it feels like it's sort of after the fact.
I think it's definitely fair to say there is a lot of work going on at the moment. So we were looking at the November date being the culmination of that. But if we can get it to a previous meeting, that would be good. But obviously trade-offs between the amount of time the team has versus getting our feedback. But they are, because it is a priority action that I've identified, I'm working quite closely with the team on that. So a lot of work happening.
So a practical step could be just a circulation of a sort of a draft plan or some general intentions to councillors, so to capture that feedback earlier, even though the finalisation of the full thing might need to wait till later.
Yep, we'll see what we can get to people earlier than that. Okay, further questions? There being none, we will move on to the next item on the agenda. Is that travel demand management and travel choice? Excellent. So Grant, I think, is going to come forward and take us through this. It's a little bit of a kind of divergence from our usual offering. So can you give us... can you start, I guess, by giving us a bit of an intro to travel demand and travel to what we're talking about, because not all members of the team will be familiar with what we do currently.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair, for the introduction. I also just want to introduce Matt Shipman, who's currently the manager for Travel Choice, and he's been part of the journey as we have gone through. So I'll just go a little bit over the background for today's paper, the role of this committee to it, and kind of why it's here. So one of the roles in the committee terms of reference is to oversee travel demand management within Greater Wellington, which is the purpose of today. And today's paper is to provide you with an overview of what travel demand management is, and what GDW is actually doing in this place, and what recent changes in the Travel Choice team have been undertaken. By way of history, and this is contained in the paper, travel demand management has been an active strategy of Greater Wellington since late 2005, when a TDM strategy was adopted by this council as a way of improving the return on investments across a range, both infrastructure investments and service investments in the then regional land transport strategy. We think about it, and it's shown on page 2 of the paper, 3 sides of a triangle for achieving travel demand management. So just stepping back, travel demand management is about managing demand on the existing network, variously either to optimise the use of those infrastructure and services, and to also shift demand away from periods when the network is reaching congestion or peak use. So it's a way of shifting demand to make better use of the assets we've got, so people and goods can get to where they need to as quickly as possible. We tend to think of it, and it's shown on page 2, through 3 sides of a triangle. And Greater Wellington is active in all 3 sides: supply side, demand side, and travel behaviour change. Supply side is the provision of services and infrastructure, and the biggest contribution that this organisation makes is the PT network itself. So that is it is providing alternative means to private vehicle use for people to get around the region. The supply side is more of a policy focus, and that a lot of that work is actually driven out of the regional transport team. And that's supporting initiatives from government, so providing input into such things as time of use charging, parking policies is a good example, and also ensuring that the objectives of the regional land transport plan actually start to show through in things such as land use planning. So examples of that would be we input into district plan changes to ensure that the principles of maximising, minimising impact on the environment are taken into account into design. We've played a significant role in providing input into the roads of national significance and fast tracking. So we take the policies that have been adopted by this council and the RLTP and ensure that they are actually carried through into land use decisions. The bottom of the triangle is travel choice itself. And that's really looking at human behaviours. What it essentially attempts to do is create awareness around people's choice, give people the capability where they might not necessarily have that capability, and then create the desire. So in a PT context, that can be as simply as providing awareness that a new service is available or services are available to them. It can be providing the capability, so actually around education on the use of things such as Snapper, or even some of the work we've been doing more recently, which is around disabled access into our vehicles, which makes those vehicles more useful to that community. The other area that, and I guess, is that the use of travel choice also leads to an increase in the benefit cost ratio. So for new projects, such as roads of national significance, bus improvements, the evidence that was gathered during Let's Get Wellington Moving in particular normally demonstrates an overall lift of 1 in a benefit cost ratio. So that can lift a project above an area where it becomes useful, but it actually means that we get a much better return on the investment that goes into that investment, either that physical investment or the provision of the service itself. In terms of the actual programs themselves, research that was conducted by NZTA Waka Kotahi showed that the workplace travel program that this council ran between 2006 and 2016 had a direct benefit cost ratio of 18.3. So for every dollar that was invested into that program, $18.3 was returned to the community in economic benefits. Turning to the Travel Choice program itself, which is run out of regional transport, GW has had a voluntary behaviour change program since that council decision in late 2005-2006. The program was significantly expanded to support Let's Get Wellington Moving and was incorporated into the current long-term plan period. As you'll be aware, Let's Get Wellington Moving was terminated or ended by the partners, and there was also changes in government priorities that meant there was a reduction in funding available to support. Oh, stop, still working. Sorry, I just went dead in my ear for some reason. So we conducted a review to determine, and this is what the rest of the paper talks about what could be effectively delivered in the current long-term plan program with the available funding. One of the key drivers we had were to maintain the wide reach and the high impact programs, while focusing the remaining TDM behavioural activities that we had in those areas where we thought it would make most difference. The Pedal Ready program and the Moving March program reach about 40,000 individuals a year across the region. So that's about 5,000 people, predominantly children, but also adults, participating in the Pedal Ready program, which provides cycling and on-road skills to Tamarikan schools across the region. And the Moving March program, which is a program which has been running since about 2010, it's actually a bit earlier than that, this year reached 135 schools. And that's targeted during the March period when children are returning to school to encourage the use of alternative modes other than private vehicle. It's also aimed at improving safety for children as they move backwards and forwards to schools. We've been working within GW to maximise the reach that we have. So we are combining our work with Enviro schools, so the work that they're doing around parks and conservation, and we are also working with Metlink to understand people's behaviours and encourage the use of public transport. The changes which are outlined in the paper are also designed with amalgamation in mind. We're conscious of the fact that there is the Head Start program and that these are functions that might actually, potentially would work alongside some of the TA functions in a combined role. But it also preserves the core set of skills, which is necessary so that the program can be grown in response to new infrastructural services being developed, and also to supply advice to project owners so that they can buy in and put behaviour change programs into their major projects, thereby maximising the return on the investment. So I just wanted to I thought it was worthwhile just stepping through what was in the paper and to provide a history and what GW is actually doing in this area, and happy to take any questions.
So from me, Grant, what was your intention on bringing this paper to us today, and what would you like from us?
The primary intention is to bring to this committee's attention what Greater Wellington is doing in the travel demand management space, to provide context for decisions which this committee will need to be taking in terms of long-term plan, but also to highlight the fact that it's just not PT, it's just not the supply, it's actually an overall integrated approach which needs to be applied at the regional level when we're thinking about the transport network.
And I guess there was, as I recall, a little bit of media around some of these changes when they were happening, and there was concern from some councillors that we hadn't been kept abreast of what the changes in the team were at the time. So just updating everyone. Councillor Saw, a question from you.
Thanks for this. I was pleased to see that that there's a bit more coordination between Travel Choice and Enviro schools, given that Enviro schools have a lot more relationships with the learners themselves. One of the things I'd like to see is Travel Choice program coming back with where the opportunities for leverage are with the existing and different partnerships we have across Greater Wellington. I guess much in the same way that perhaps we have in Roputaiao with our community groups and friends of various streams and pest management groups and things like that. So what are the plans to develop those sorts of relationships? And is there any danger that we're duplicating with other community organisations and other delivery mechanisms that have those relationships in communities?
So through the chair, and if I'm understanding the question correctly, the point of working with the like of Enviro Schools is to avoid that duplication and to make sure that where we are engaging and working with schools and community groups, it is done in a coordinated manner. One of the other things which we have also been working on and trialled this year with Moving March is development of an online platform for educators that was built with teachers. That platform at the moment essentially only looks at the travel demand, but we are working with Enviro Schools, so this has the potential to be a platform for GW's reach into schools, and that is being actively coordinated with Environment Group.
I guess the thing is, Enviro Schools isn't the only part of Greater Wellington that has relationships. I'm thinking of our mana whenua partners where programs can be delivered for kaumātua and marae, for example, and other parts of the region. So I'm just wondering if there is going to be resource in the team to be able to, I guess, push out from just our, younger community members and other groups. For example, is there a relationship with Nuku Ora, who deliver a lot of programs for different age groups around those sort of travel choices and broader well-being benefits? Would really like to see some of that work. Another one that springs to mind is the Purirua Climate Assembly, where there's a lot of motivation from the community there to be addressing some of the issues there. So where does travel choice and these sorts of programs link in there?
So I think through the chair, I'll answer the question in two ways, one of which is the partnership with mana whenua groups is something which regional transport is very aware of, and we will be bringing that in the strategic relationship that we have developed with, we are developing jointly with NZTA on that, and that is one means of reaching through. In terms of the travel choice program itself, what I'd like to offer is that we can come back to respond to those questions, because we are now working, we do reach into Kurukopapa, but we would need to explore further what those additional links are and how that works as a single integrated package.
Yeah.
That'd be great, thank you.
Okay, we've got a speaking order, so let's keep your questions succinct. We've got Councillor Duthie, James and Free. Duthie.
I've actually got 3 questions, so I'll try and keep them all succinct, or do one at a time. 3. One for now. Picking up on Yardina's question, what partnerships do we have with community groups and charities that are also working in a travel demand management or travel choices space to optimise our investment and actually, get more bang for the public buck? Is there opportunity there for using that collaboration to get more result?
Okay, so for the first question through the chair, I'll ask Matt to answer that, as he's got closer knowledge of the groups we're working with.
Yeah, thanks, Quentin. So we have partnerships with Uso Bike Ride in Porirua. We have partnerships with Free Ride in Hutt Valley, and also with we actually train the teachers at the Te Ara Whanui Kurukopapa so they can deliver bicycle skills in Te Reo Māori. So we've actually trained up and had them actually qualified at an NZQA level, about 6 teachers so far. So we think that's quite a good start. One thing I think you need to realise as well is that this team is smaller now than it ever has been. So we kind of obviously we want to be making best use of these partnerships, and that's our intention.
May I ask my second question, and I'll pause because it follows on from that. So the paper is very good, succinctly tells us sort of what we're continuing to do, but it also notes that we delivered savings of $1.9 million. Now, I presume there was some people that no longer have a job, and they used to do something, and they're not doing that something anymore. So what is it that we're not doing in order to achieve those savings?
So through the chair, the savings, the size of the programs was to support Let's Get Wellington Moving. So when Let's Get Wellington Moving ceased, it was the range of those activities that were targeted specifically to support Let's Get Wellington Moving, working jointly with Wellington City to start to build a program that would have been providing information, tools to people to help them navigate the construction works that were going to be part of that program. So stripping that aside, the core part of the program, which was around Pedal Ready, Moving March, and the TDM activities, has continued onwards. So in terms of what the public saw, I think I'm hoping I'm answering the question. There has not been a drop-off in the service that we've been providing, our public-facing services. It was the work that was sitting behind that. With respect to the individuals, the majority of them have found work elsewhere across GW and other areas as well as those opportunities have come up.
Okay, Councillor James, then Councillor Free.
I only have 2 questions. My first question is, you talked a little bit about, working with NZTA and other TAs on various transport projects. Can you talk a bit more about, what does your advocacy look like there, and what are the outcomes you're seeking in projects?
So through this year, just to confirm, that's with respect to the demand side that you're looking at, or is that... I'll just give an example in terms of where we have worked or some of the places that we have been working. So out of the regional land transport plan, there are 5 strategic objectives which revolve around including supporting PT, reducing the harm of transport on the environment, reducing deaths and serious injuries across the region, and ensuring that goods and people can move efficiently. So the form of the advocacy occurs in a number of places, one of which is when we are working on, for example, projects such as the Roads of National Significance, which is one where the strategy people have been quite heavily involved in. What we're doing is we look at the designs to ensure that those designs actually maximise those particular objectives. So that's setting aside how people may or may not feel about roads of national significance. We nevertheless do have a range of policies which are in there, and what we look to do is to ensure that those policies are reflected back in the actual design of the infrastructure that comes back in. When we're working on changes to district plans, that's also picking up the regional policy statement, which now under Change 1 does have some provisions around design. That's making sure that those designs have the footpaths are in there, that the developers are thinking about access for PT into new developments, and that active modes are also catered for, so the use of footpaths are actually in there. Examples of where things have not gone so well, and this is why we do advocate in, some of the developments have occurred up in Kapiti Coast, where there is insufficient design in the roads for PT services for us to actually get buses into those suburbs. From a safety point of view, Fire Emergency New Zealand and Wellington Free Ambulance have also indicated issues with the design of some of those streets. So what we are seeing through the advocacy is that the potential for PT is in there. A more recent one is Porirua Northern Growth Area, where we're continuing to work with Porirua City, and they are incorporating it, that there is the provision for a PT link down the spine of that growth area when it's in there.
You have a further question?
Yeah, why not? You mentioned time of use charging before, and I'm sorry, I think I missed it, that you said you weren't doing that anymore. It's not in the list of things under, Para 22.
So in the overall approach to travel demand management, no, we do continue to support and work with the design, what would be the future design of time of use charging. So no, we have not. We are continuing to support time of use charging through and work with the local territorial authorities and regionally to ensure that when the time is right, that it is actually brought, that if it is well considered and if it is appropriate, it is brought in.
Also, are you expecting to bring something forward for council to consider this training?
Through the chair, that would so we work on the design with the future network. So the place where this is probably most active in this is a strategic level is with the future network plan, which is something that we will be bringing to this council during this triennium. And one of the considerations, so this is looking at how do the strategic components of our network operate, how do people come into Wellington City, for example, during rush hour, what's their journey like into that, and one of the interventions that's being considered in that is adoption of time of use charging. So that would be in as one of the interventions that would be listed in the future network plan that will be adopted eventually by the Regional Transport Committee on behalf of this council, and then we would be advocating for its use as the network is built out over essentially the lifetime of that plan, which is over the next 30 years.
Okay, Councillor Free, and then we'll move on to the next item. Councillor
So I saw in the paper that this has been the new regime has been in place since the 20th of July. But this is the first time as a councillor I was even aware that there'd been some kind of change. Is there any chance for us to actually endorse this or actually approve it? It is quite a public-facing service, so I'm a little bit surprised that they were just presented with it as an officer-led, completely officer-led solution.
So I'm going to hand to Nigel. Part of the reason that this is on the agenda is there was a bit of media around that decision, and people were a little bit concerned that they hadn't been given more of a heads up, hence the reason we're bringing it to you now, but Nigel will address that.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the questions, councillors. Yeah, look, as Grant's outlined, the reason for the reduction in this program and the haste that happened, we lost a significant amount of money that came into this program through Let's Go Wellington Moving. That was effectively Crown money, effectively aligned with Let's Go Wellington Moving program. That had a hasty retreat in terms of its funding, which impacted on this program, and we just had to react very quickly. We had staff considerations we had to take into account, we had contractual situations we had to take into account, and we had to move quite quickly. It was a management call to do that at the time based on the amount of revenue we had coming in and staff considerations and well-being. We could have done perhaps a little bit better in informing councillors, but this was a management call based on the amount of revenue and the source of that revenue that we had, and it was the only pragmatic way to deal with it.
So there must have been a lot of work happening though that wasn't Let's Get Welly Moving.
There was, and as Grant's papers outlined, the majority of that work continues to actually be undertaken with the funding given to the organisation by the council for the activities that Grant's talked about. What disappeared was a lot of the add-on work that was given by the Crown funding associated with Let's Go Wellington Moving. Okay. Are you still working on travel plans, workplace travel plans? Is that part of what's going to be ongoing?
Through you, the Chair. So workplace travel plans are interesting. So at the moment, we would certainly keep that under consideration. And if the focus that we do have, one of the things we identified is to work with large business groups. And if they ask for assistance, we would support them in developing that. The major program they had was with the Wellington Regional Hospital. And we did develop a workplace travel action plan with them. The most obvious benefit that came out of it and the product that was most appreciated is the HX service, which is the express bus service from the railway station. Health New Zealand, Whatu Ora, also suffered significant cutbacks in their funding. And while we would have liked to have continued working with them, they were not in a position as a partner to continue working with us on that plan. So at the moment, we're not actively pursuing workplace travel plans. But with our planned engagement with businesses, and we're looking for larger employers eventually, if they ask for assistance, we would provide them with the guidance to develop the plans for their staff.
I don't know if we've got a chance to debate this paper because it's only really for information. Is that the case?
Yeah, it is only for information. I mean, I'm happy for you to say what it is that you want to say. But I think the team have outlined what the team does and the capacity of the team currently. If we want to change that, it would have to be done through the LTP.
Okay.
Could I just add to that? Sorry, Chair, but that's a really important point. So this paper is information, or is that the request of the committee or councils to get an update on what's happening with the program? As with all our programs, you will be having a robust conversation about all of our work delivery in the long-term plan, and this will be a feature of what we'll bring to you as well, along with many other work programs that we've already put on the agenda for you, either in the past few months or the coming months. So you'll absolutely get a chance to debate and discuss further. Yep.
Thank you.
Councillor Elder, and then we'll move on to the next item.
My question did relate to the LTP, so I'll have you to withdraw that, knowing that we now know what we know.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Grant and team, for coming and explaining that to us. Good job. Okay, we'll now move on to the next item, which is item 8, which is transport major projects. I assume, I'm looking for Tim, but I don't see Tim. No, Sam. Okay, Sam is going to take us through this. Again, this is useful information ahead of our LTP discussions, but can you just kind of explain the reason that you've brought this paper to us now and what input you're seeking from us before we get cracking?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so this report we are delivering to you quarterly as a result of a request from the committee to receive a regular update on our major projects and programs kind of in one place. So it's a for information report, and if there are decisions to be made on particular programs for committee or council decision, then they will always be the subject of separate reports. So it really is purely an update. So I will take the report as read, but just note that I guess a few updates in relation to each item since we wrote the report. It does relate back to the period ending in the last quarter, ending the 30th of June, but there are a few things that have happened since, so I'll just give you a quick update on those things. It's okay with you, Chair. So just on the Linram program, I'm pleased to report that we had a positive governance group meeting last week and are making some quite good progress on the level crossings issue with on the Manawatu line in conjunction with KiwiRail and the rail regulator, so that's good news. In terms of Riverlink, this report gives you some information about the travel behaviour of people as a result of the Riverlink works, which hopefully you find interesting and useful. Just an update in relation to the new station. The final construction drawings are being prepared at the moment. We understand they'll be submitted for consents in the next few months, and then the construction of the new station is due to take place starting next year sometime. We'll provide some more updates on that when we've got some more concrete information about timeframes. But the GW input to those plans has happened. Effectively, that was done at an earlier stage. On the ticketing front, just in terms of EMV rollout in particular, there has been some media, including a statement from the Minister about the validators being down all the time. The validators aren't down all the time. There is, we are experiencing an intermittent issue with the EMV functionality on the validators. We are keeping a really close eye on that, what the issue is being bottomed out, and we're talking with Planeta, the software developer, about that. That is affecting about 5% of validators at any given time at the moment. EMV stands for Europay MasterCard Visa. So sorry to use it's the being able to use your credit card or your debit card on the validators. In terms of Waterloo, we had a great site visit there on Friday. So I think, and there's an article in the Post today covering off some of the things that we talked through with Council on Friday. The Future Transport Services program, the Tranche 2 community engagement is about to kick off, and a number of councillors are going to be available for some of those engagements. It would be good to see how that proceeds.
Can you please send councillors the pack for the engagement? Yes. It was in one of our digital notices, but I think councillors would like kind of that information contextualised for them.
Sure. The Strategic Public Asset Control, we had a closed workshop on the 4th of August where we talked through the depot plans and also the RS1 timetable and things related to that. In relation to rapid transit bus corridors, at the meeting on the 10th of September, we'll be bringing for endorsement by this council, actually that'll come to council, the business case for RTBC. And in terms of the Golden Mile bus shelters, we have communicated with Wellington City in terms of what we would like to see happen with those bus shelters. The next stage for that work relates to Wellington City's scoping of the work that they are going to look at in terms of the Golden Mile. They were due to have the initial council workshop on that early this week, but that's been postponed due to the passing of Councillor Randall. So we have got an officer engagement with that when that will occur. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions, Councillor Ponta first, and then Councillor Duffy.
So I've got two unrelated questions. The first one is about.
Hopefully they are related.
By the fact they relate to trains. So the first one is about the unit that was involved in the Kandala accident. I suppose my question is, in all likelihood, my assessment is that that train is likely to be written off. How does that affect the delivery of the network by having a train gone from the system? And how do we, if we need to, how do we actually fix that?
Through you, Chair, if I can suggest we pick up that question in the context of the PT performance report. There currently is no impact, but we can discuss that in that context.
Yep.
More generally, in terms of the insurance position and that kind of thing, we're working with the Transport Accident Investigation Commission on getting access to the train in order that those assessments can be made and decisions taken. We currently aren't at that point.
So my other question is, can you just unpack a little bit what the issues are with rail crossings on the Manawatu line?
Certainly. So in the context of the LINRIM program of work, there has, can I say this simply, there are a number of level crossings on the Manawatu section of line which may require an upgrade due to safety assessments because of increased frequency of trains associated with LINRIM on that line. Now, there are various ways in which that can be looked at, and in the initial costing of the project, a certain approach was taken and a certain number of level crossings was identified using a particular methodology, which then resulted in a very significant impact on the project budget. So what we are looking at is how we address the any critical safety issues, or identify which are the critical safety issues that need to be addressed at level crossings, which then need to be remediated in the context of the LINRIM project and the LINRIM project budget.
So, Madam Chair, why are those costs loaded onto the LINRIM project when KiwiRail fully knew at the time that LINRIM business case was being developed that that was likely to be an implication of the LINRIM project? Like, you know, it feels like they've come late to the party with this proposition when they should have actually been talking to us about building it into the business case. Now I'm sensing that we have to wear the cost, or some of the cost, or at least Horizons do, from this.
So I would say that it might be worth us having a separate session on the level crossings in particular. It's quite complicated how we've got to where we've got to, but I would say that as a result of recent discussions and a way forward being worked through, we are increasingly confident that we will be able to address the crossings that need to be addressed using the so far as reasonably practicable, removing the risk approach within the money that we've got available. But that's being worked through at the moment. So what I would suggest is that perhaps we could have a separate, perhaps a workshop where we talk that through.
Okay. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. Just first, bouquet for the site visit to Waterloo last week. That was great, and appreciate fellow councillors weighing into helping to share information, especially Councillor James, share information with the Lower Hutt community about where we're at with that project. My first question relates to paragraph 5, so the LINRIM Palmy Masterton trains, probably for those who wonder what LINRIM is. I recall in the past we had advocacy from Horowhenua District Council about the location of the Levin railway station. Can you update us on, and currently the station is a little bit out of town, kilometre or something from the CBD. Yeah, the CBD. You can call Levin's Centre District CBD. Yeah. And they wanted it a bit closer for obvious reasons. Where are we stuck with where it is? Where did that advocacy and conversation lead to with Horowhenua District Council?
So I understand that the program is still, actively engaged with Horowhenua in relation to what their plans might be for Levin, but in the context of this project and having it being able, the new trains being able to run from 2029, we need to start with the station in its current location. There won't be time for a new station to be constructed, and indeed it's largely a funding issue in terms of how would a new station be funded. So I think we're involved with them in terms of what they might seek for the future, but in terms of actually the commencement of the new trains, they will be using the station at the existing location.
That'll be a problem for the Greater Palmerston North City Council.
Thank you for that.
Do you have a further question, Councillor Duffy?
Councillor Ponta. Yes, our second question relates to the RTI 2.0. So we've had a bit of a setback with the software developer unsuccessfully delivering on that aspect. But we're still planning to roll out front-end hardware now between July and December this year.
Yes.
So how does that work, that we're rolling out screens when the software that is putting the information on the screens is being stopped in its tracks and having to be read? There's something that I'm not aware of.
There are two aspects to the RTI project. So there is the new screens which enable the current information that we have through our current software to be displayed in a different manner and in more customer-friendly manner, if you like. So those screens, we have purchased those screens and they are being rolled out across the network. So one of them, for example, is the bus stop at Manor Street. So they're the larger sort of LCD screens, and so they're being used with existing information feeds. We're about to go to the market for a new provider to upgrade the software feed.
So I guess for councillor and public awareness, just because you see a new colourful screen showing information and then you notice that the bus is still 5 seconds out of kilter, it's not because the new RTI is dumb, like the old one. It's just that the back end information hasn't yet been developed to feed through to get that sort of more real time.
That's correct.
Okay, that's good to know because I've been asked. Third question, Chair, may I?
Yeah. Succinctly.
No, I can't remember what it was. So.
Okay. Councillor Free.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. So listening to the previous question about the crossings, I'm assuming this is because of the Tohono trains that we're involved in this discussion. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And are you telling me, though, that our Wellington region ratepayers are going to be paying for some of these crossing upgrades, and if so, which ones?
So the Tohono, or the Linram program, is funded largely 90% by Crown, and we are running the program, but it's 10% funded regionally between us and Horizons, but 90% by the Crown. And that funding covers the new trains, which is about half of it, about 400 million, and then there's rail network upgrades and new depots and that kind of thing. And the rail network upgrades includes the level crossing. So yes, regional ratepayers are contributing to the rail network upgrades required for that program, but it's 10%, not the usual 50%, I suppose.
But when we say 10%, it's probably 10% of a very big number, right?
Well, it's 10% of about 800 million across for the whole packet, the whole program.
Okay.
It's a good deal.
I realise it's a good deal, but there are a lot of us who are never going to use those trains.
Okay, but debating where the money comes from is not on the agenda for today. So do you have a further question, Councillor Free? Or
But that was good to clarify that it's 10% of 5% each council, I presume, and then that there's a limited scope for this.
Our contribution.
Okay, further questions on the major projects report in front of us? No. Okay, excellent. Well, thank you for that update. And I guess we've been across quite a few of the projects sort of subsequent to the last time a major projects update was in front of us. So that possibly explains why there aren't more further questions. Okay, so we'll move on to the last item on our agenda, which is our standard public transport performance. We do have people joining us for this. I was reasonably pleased with some of the numbers in June. Buses were above last year, and trains were getting close to last year's June figures, so that gave me some heart. But Paul, what would you like to cover off in particular in relation to this report?
Morning, councillors. So yes, this is a June report, but we'll just go through some of the highlights and sort of lowlights, and then we'll get into sort of any questions. So bus performance has been good. Punctuality's seen a dip on the prior year, but this is mainly due to the Riverlink disruption in the Hutt Valley and the storm that impacted the South Coast and the Wairarapa. Just coming back to you, Councillor Saw, on questions you asked at the future growth workshop last week around spare vehicle ratios. So the NZTA best practice standard is 10%. We don't have any contractual obligations for our operators, but we can confirm that they're sitting in the range of 12 to 15%. Conditions of bus is good, and the team is in the middle of doing the transferring asset audits now, so they'll get comprehensive reports on those. Driver availability, I know the numbers have dropped, but I can confirm that there are no issues with drivers. This is a time of year that the operators put their people on leave, so reduce leave balances, give their drivers a well-deserved break, and we're seeing no issues with the reliability number. Patronage trends for June are up 7.4% on bus and 11.4% on rail. And this is probably, a lot of this probably still due to the continued high fuel prices. Interesting that the Wairarapa and Kapiti are the highest. Wairarapa at 25.9% up in patronage, and Kapiti at 15.4%. This led to the fare revenue increase of 404k above the June budget. But just wanted to note, which you probably already know, that the year-end revenue actuals were down by 5.8 million. July's patronage, just want to let you know about that too, is down on last year. But what we suspect that is about is that the matariki and the school holidays were firmly in July this year, whereas last year they were bordering June and July. Ferry operations, ferry reliability was at 83.9% in June, but we did have 110 services impacted by weather. Some good news is that since the opening of Te Aratupua, there's been a significant increase in bike boardings on the ferry. Talking to Matt earlier, he was saying that so April versus May was 300% up, and June and July have been 200% up. Matt and his team are currently working towards looking forward to summer, and any other innovations they can bring to us around how that increase capacity for summer, because they will not have capacity at the moment. They're using a booking system to so that customers can book ahead of time. They're limiting the bookings to 3, and then making the call on the day because depending on the boat, they've got capacity between 3, 6, and 12. So they can load. Lastly, or nearly lastly, rail. So reliability was impacted obviously by the Johnsonville line incident, and also weather-related issues on that line, and also at the Ngauranga station. Those two incidents combined impacted 914 services through June. Bus replacements made up 16.6% of rail services, and usually and 11.4% of those were unplanned. Usually the unplanned number is much lower, at between 1 to 2%. So, but that was again all related to Johnsonville. You would have seen probably in the paper, we've started to, police and QRail have been working together around cable thefts. There were a couple of arrests at the end of July, and over July we only saw one cable theft incident, which is good. So hopefully that's come to an end. Rail as well, with the frosty or icy overhead issues. We fully acknowledge that the communication was not great over that period to customers, and we're forming a group to look at all aspects of our communications, not only just BRT, but website, app, our assets and infrastructure, and processes. Are there any questions?
So I'll kick off with the BRT. Obviously, Johnsonville, what happened on the Johnsonville line meant that reliability was severely down this month. You know how, so we know that when Transdev doesn't provide a train and they provide a bus instead, that is still counted towards their reliability figures, and I understand that is the case. Is there any minimum number of buses they have to provide? I'm thinking that there were a number of instances where really through no one's fault, but the number of buses that could be procured was not sufficient to handle the number of people. Is one bus in replacing a full train still counted as meeting their reliability need?
Yeah, the short answer is yes.
Okay. I think that we need to store that up for addressing. That is not good enough. The fact, I mean, if they provided a full suite of buses that would actually replace the capacity of a train, that's one thing. But providing one bus, not good enough.
I do just to I don't that Transdev certainly aren't looking for one bus. It's sometimes, especially in morning peak, it is the availability of buses that leads to we could only get one bus.
So I get that, but the fact that it still registers as 100% reliability, if you're a person who gets left behind, you do not think that train was 100% reliable if you're left behind because the bus did not have capacity. Okay, other questions? Councillor Free and then Councillor Ponta.
Thank you. And first of all, I would actually like to start with congratulating the East to West and City Connections, because that's the one I use a lot. I think it's run by Kinetic, and it is amazing. It's like clockwork at the moment. I totally believe the data is as good as it says. So that's just something nice for a change from me. I see we measure bike boardings on the trains. Do we actually look at any data about how many people are using that service and putting a bike on the bus? Because it would be, I think, a slightly useful metric if we're trying to get a joined up system.
No, we don't currently record that on board bus. We may have other metrics, but the drivers aren't logging individual bike boardings for each trip.
I'm quite surprised we're able to do it for the trains, to be honest, but I think it's useful information. Is there any chance that we could?
Yes, so that is something that is being investigated through the NTS program, the ability to potentially look at being able to record objects that board, obviously with a person, as opposed to just physical boards.
Okay, and just sort of aligned with that, I see there's also an opportunity for councillors to have some input into the kind of reporting we're getting, and that's meant to be coming up in August, September. Yes. There's presumably not a date as yet.
No, so I was supposed to end with that, or lead with that, and Margaret's behind me, probably getting ready to throw something at me. Yes, she'll send Margaret will send the invite out after this meeting.
Okay, cool. And I don't know if I'll get another chance to say this, but this whole meeting has actually been for information, which and it's not addressed to anybody, perhaps just CE is the most, but it does sort of, in my mind, say what's the difference between this meeting and a workshop. So I do feel that some of these papers could have come for our endorsement or for offered an opportunity for a more structured kind of feedback than just questions to the staff. So, yeah, for me, it's disappointing to come to a meeting that's meant to be a committee meeting and find that there isn't actually a way, a structured way for elected members to actually express views.
I think you've expressed your views.
I have, but I've had to kind of do it. It hasn't been an easy, transparent way to do it, like there would be if there were actually
I
a
dispute
debate.
that. But anyway, we'll move on to the next question from Councillor Ponta.
The question was the impact of the unit that's been affected as a consequence of the Kandala incident.
So currently that means, with that one unit being out, means that we've got 82 available units, and at the busiest point of the morning peak we need 76. So even with the one unit out, it still allows Rotem and Transdev to have 6 units for planned maintenance and things like that. So at the moment we're at the tail end of current maintenance issues, but I'm expecting going forward with this current timetable it to have no impact, and we should still be able to run the full morning peak. It is something that we need to consider for RS1 though. If we carry on with 82, RS1 currently asks for about 77 or 78 units, and that will get us very close to the line at that point. So we're currently reviewing where the placement of those units will become RS1, but at the moment there shouldn't be a day-to-day impact solely due to that one unit being out.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's just important to remember too that with the Trogon or the heavy maintenance recovery plan, that there was originally 12 units out. We're currently down to 4 units being out, and we've been able to manage those units just through, because we don't have the patronage. We can reduce consist size to help buffer that. So over this period, there's been no impact to customers.
Is that the end of your questions, Councillor Ponta?
It certainly is.
Okay, I've got questions from Councillor Duthie, Elder and James. Councillor Duthie.
Thank you. First, a positive observation that just looking across the 12-month rolling average for passenger boardings across both bus, rail and ferry, that for the first time for a long time, all of them are on a upwards trajectory.
Yeah.
A modest one, but they're all trending in the right direction. So that's nice to note. Is where my eye often goes first. Paul, I often raise the issue of early running buses at intermediate stops, and it's nice to see that it's sort of stabilised or maybe dropping a bit, but it's still above where it used to be. In the time series graph, a couple of years ago, it used to be sort of in the 2, 3, 4% of services running before their scheduled timed stops, and we're still up in the 6, 7, 8%. And I note the message that officers continue to review route-specific patterns to see, especially where connections. I just want to reiterate, it's a common complaint I get, especially for people getting off a train at Waterloo and connecting to a feeder bus, and that feeder bus has already left 2 minutes early, and then they miss their connection. And for some passengers, it's an hour before the next bus, and Waterloo is not a great place to hang around for an hour for another bus. So if you could, in the reviewing specific routes, think about that connection with trains and those feeder buses that are low frequency. Please. That wasn't a question. Whoops. My apologies, Chair.
You're all right.
But he wrote something down, so it must have been useful.
Excellent. Okay, Councillor Elder.
Specifically in relation to performance, and it's probably more for Sam than you, Paul, but is there a way we can get this information from when it's presented to us up on the website more quickly? Frequently it's taking weeks, if not months. As I've emailed Lisa about it a couple of times, but she hasn't been able to rectify the situation.
Yeah, I'm spending a lot of time with the person who does those reports. I thought this was resolved. He had better timeline of when he was getting them up, and I think they've been up since the last time we sort of talked about that. Have you seen that it isn't in the time frame? Right. Okay. I'll follow that.
I do find the website very difficult to navigate, so I can't always find things on the website, to be honest. But we'll report back because we think we've made some changes in that space. So we understand there have been improvements.
And it was often Tony Randall who was pushing for that information to be put up to the site.
Councillor James.
Just on the rail punctuality, and the report talks about how TSRs can impact. We know that the TSRs get worse throughout the year as the wear and tear happens, and there isn't the right amount of maintenance. Well, there isn't the maintenance that you get at the end of the year when you've got big blocks of line. Do we know if there's any big bits of work planned from KiwiRail to address these in the coming months, or are we waiting or do we have to wait till the end of the year?
They are constantly ticking off the TSRs, to put it in a friendly way. There are no big pieces of work planned until October Labour Day weekend, which is the next time that they can get in over 3 days. And over Labour Day weekend and Christmas, they're working on a few big areas, particularly around Paikokariki, which is a big speed restriction that's been affecting services for a while. And also we're hoping that some of the Johnsonville line TSRs are coming off then, but we are looking throughout the rest of the year before they really do reduce. And the same with the Wairarapa line. There's a massive piece of work that's planned for Christmas, and we should see some real improvements on the Wairarapa line from January.
Just noting too that the TSRs are in a pretty good shape, like they're below KPI, but there is an issue that we've got a tri-party group that are starting to look at. We're going to focus on the Hutt Valley and the Wairarapa. Because the network seems to be performing okay, there is something else that needs us to deep dive into what's happening and look for improvements.
Sorry, when you say something else, you say that because you're not aware at the moment something's causing problems, but you're not quite sure what it is.
We're investigating a number of issues that we think might be a cause of it. At the moment, we're working with KiwiRail and Transdev, and I wouldn't really like to point the finger at the moment, but we are investigating things like the signalling system and the new signalling system, Wellington Junction and the congestion around there, and what we can do with the platform berthing, and a number of other smaller issues that we're hoping to tick off. But at the moment, we can't put our finger on one sole reason that the performance is remaining the way it is at the moment.
Yeah, that's interesting. That just kind of reflects my experience as a user, but it's sort of hard to quantify that. So keep us updated when you find out more. Right. Any other questions, Councillor Duthie?
A money question, really for public transparency, I guess. The report highlights that for the last financial year, there was a revenue shortfall of 5.7 million. And then you mentioned that there's been the cost pressure from the fuel price on the other side of the ledger. Just for transparency, how have we handled the budget for last year? How have we accommodated that revenue shortfall and increased cost? And where are we at with getting some support from government for that increased diesel price cost?
Through you, Chair. So in terms of the end of year result of the 5.7 million, that will be accommodated through PT Reserve, and it will be subject of a finance report that will come to council at the next council meeting. And in terms of the fuel situation, we did receive a one-off payment from government of around about $840,000 as a contribution to our additional fuel costs. The fuel impact is currently costing us about an additional $1.2 million a month. So it was a small contribution to the additional additional costs that we are incurring.
Has the government indicated that they are still considering support for public transport authorities around the country to weather the fuel crisis?
I believe they have stood down the team that was looking at it. So we are taking opportunities to continue to keep it on our agenda with NZTA, but I don't think there's any active work going on in that regard.
Thank you for your question. Last question of the day from Member Parkin.
Thank you. Obviously, with the Kandala incident, that obviously meant that the railway was unused for several weeks. Was there any maintenance undertaken, or like sort of impromptu maintenance undertaken to utilise that downtime whilst the line was unused?
No, I think all their resource was focused on the recovery.
Thank you. That was, I guess, a good reminder of taking opportunities where they can, but obviously most of the maintenance needs to be planned in advance, so it's hard to provide last minute work. Okay. Any further questions, or shall I move on to our closing karakia and then we can move on to the workshop? Okay. Closing karakia. Kia tau te rangimari e, ki runga, ki raro, ki roto, ki waho, aia ki te aorangi, kia whakamaua kia tina, hui e tai ki e. Okay, 5 minutes wharepaki